Okay, Torah, Shmais, page Mem Tes, 10 lines in the bottom. Okay, we got off yesterday in discussion for a change. Anyway, the Rabbi is saying that the person is to elevate the world in those things that you're able to elevate, like we learned mutar, and that's why the Mishnah is what defines what is mutar, what is elevatable, what is not elevatable, what is allowed, what's not allowed. And he says, just like you have it in food, you have it in houses, you have it in garments. So he says, this refining of the physical objects is bechinas chochma, bechinas mishnayis. There's a pasuk that says, bechachma is beriru. With chachma, you refine. In other words, you choose, you select. You need to have wisdom to know how to select, what to select. But that refers to the level of mishnayis. Why? Because Mishnah is like short and sweet. Mishnah is like the level of chachma. Mishnah doesn't go into reasoning, it doesn't go into elaboration, and it says, this is the halacha. Yeah, no, argument, whatever it is. But in order to bring down this great level of chachma, to be, which is normally, Hashem's chachma is not in our level known of chachma. So yes, Mishnah is the level of chachma, but who bring the chachma of Hashem? But who is able to bring down that level of chachma into the Mishnah? Is Tanoim Bali Mishnah. That's who the authors of the Mishnah, which are known as Tanoim. Like the pasuk says, V'hisanim, the strong ones, Meisdei Aretz, founded the earth. Hisanim is the same letters as the word Tanoim. Tanoim is the era of the Mishnah. The rabbis of that era are called Tanoim. The era of the Gemara is called Amiroim. So it says that the pasuk says the strong ones who founded the earth. That refers, Hisanim is the same letters as Tanoim, meaning what's the foundation of the world? Those are the Tanoim. They founded the earth, which is Torah Shebal Peh, which is the oral Torah. We know Shemayim is Torah Shebiksav, Aretz is Torah Shebal Peh, Great Shekos and Maskales, and Shemamshich and Bechinas Maskil, that they bring down the level of maskil, which is the chochma of Hashem, into the level al davar. L'chein nikra malkasa. Therefore, the Mishnah is called queen. Malkasa is the feminine of melech in Aramaic. It means queen. What does it mean? She yichud ha-melech ima tmidi. The kings in the old yesteryears, well, they have them today, it's called mistresses. But the kings used to have wives, and they had concubines, pilakshim. Well, the difference between a wife and Pilagish was the wife was always there, so to speak, and the concubines was when the king wanted, or whatever. So the Mishnah is called queens because they're always with the Melech. Melech refers to Hashem. And the Mishnah, the Tanoim that made the Mishnah, so to speak, they organized them, didn't make it, they organized the Mishnah with all their opinions. That is the level of the queen that's constantly with Hashem. Bottom line, he says like this. In order to refine the world, it's through Torah. Because if you don't know what's allowed and what's not allowed, you don't know if it's pure or impure, you can't do anything. Right? You have to know, can I elevate chazer? Can I elevate an apple? I mean, you have to know. Right, so Torah comes along and tells us and clarifies the issue. And therefore, through Torah, now I'm able to refine the world. This I could do, this I can't do, this I can't eat, but I could benefit from, this I cannot even benefit from, all the various zillions of law. One second. So that is, through the Tanoim, the greatness of the Tanoim, where they brought down this level of Chachma of Hashem into the Mishnah, that allows then the Jews, for all generations, to be able to refine the world in the proper way, which is the refinement of the world to prepare the world for Mashiach. What?
You said Mishnah is not analytical and doesn't really dissect.
My Mishnah is not analytical. My Mishnah is basically a bunch of... The Gemara is analytical. The Gemara is analytical. And he says, that's the level of Mad Chachmi Law. I know, they Tanoim, through the Tanoim Chachmi HaMishnah. Ki Tanoim, Eisius, Eisonim. He says like this. Tanoim is the same letters as Eisonim, like we said. Shemekabel Mechinas Chachma Al Derech Moshe Kibul Torah Misinai. In other words, they are the ones that receive the Torah. Just like the original Torah receiver was Moshe Kibul Torah Misinai. Ad Nevi'im Suran Sheknesas Agdela. Asher Kabbalah and a Kabbalah Moshe, which is Bechinas Chacham. Moshe Rabbeinu is a level of Chacham. You know, everything makes sense when it's all put into perspective. We know Moshe Rabbeinu is a level of Chachma. The Moshe Rabbeinu said, "V'nachnu ma." What are we? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's relevant to this week's parsha. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. Therefore, Avram Avinu did kindness. Yitzchak did digging wells. Yaakov did colored sticks. Moshe Rabbeinu, it says in Chassidus and Kabbalah, is the level of Chachma, which is higher than the Midas. Therefore, because Chachma is Seichel, at the end of this week's parsha, when Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Hashem and says, Lama Ariesa, Lama Zeh, why did you do evil? Because at the end of the parsha, Parah made it worse for the Jews since Moshe Rabbeinu came. And Moshe Rabbeinu comes to God and says, I don't understand. What are you doing? It doesn't make sense what you're doing. So Hashem says at the beginning of next week's parsha, I missed the office. They never questioned me. They accepted everything. I tell Avram one day he's having a lot of kids and Yitzchak is going to be killed. I missed the old guys. Yeah? But Chassidus explains why Taka did Moshe Rabbeinu ask and not the others. So the answer is Moshe Rabbeinu is Seichel, Chochma Vatzilas. Seichel needs to understand. Midas, love, kindness, fear, and they don't need to understand. It's not their level. Their level is to feel. So Moshe Rabbeinu is the level of Chochma. So therefore, he's the original level of Chochma. Therefore, Torah, which is Chochma of Hashem, was given through Moshe Rabbeinu, given over generation to generation until the Tanoim, which are also the level of Chochma, and they made the Mishnah.
Look, it's higher than others.
Level-wise, yeah.
No, I understand.
Moshe Rabbeinu is Chochma Vatzilas. Avram Yitzchak Yaakov is Chesed Gevurah Tiferes Vatzilas.
Moshe of the generations are higher. Okay.
Yes, in that level, yes. And he says, therefore, Mishnah is primarily, let me just give a historical background to understand what the Alter Rebbe is saying over here. When Moshe Rabbeinu was given Torah, it was given oral and written. Oral is not allowed to be written, written was not allowed to be oral. Okay? This was handed down generations, from Moshe Rabbeinu to Yeshua to all the generations. Now, eventually, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi saw that Torah was being forgotten. So as the Rambam uses the expression, sometimes you have to amputate a limb to save the life. So even though you're not allowed to write oral Torah in a formal, you're allowed to write it privately. They're allowed to take private, no, but formally, you are not allowed to write oral Torah. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi said, listen, if we don't do it, we're not going to have any Torah. The whole Torah is going to be dead, so to speak. So let's amputate a limb in order to save Torah. So when he gathered all the Chacham generations, what they wrote in Mishnah is what they accepted from their rabbis, all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. So it wasn't their own understanding of Seichel. It was what they actually heard from Moshe Rabbeinu. And therefore, as we know, years ago when somebody was in Shul, and it's not that a bunch of bored rabbis got together and started making rules. And getting paid, yeah. They didn't get paid. You're not allowed to get paid for teaching oral Torah. Anyway, so this is mamish what was given to them generation to generation until Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, and then they compiled in the Mishnah. And he says, that's what he's saying here. It wasn't al-pi al-chraz sichlam. It wasn't based on the decision of their seichel. Rak ma shekiblu ish mipi ish ad meisha. And like the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer, Yud beis amalehem shemaiti. Yud ches amalehem le shemaiti. The Gemara speaks over there in Sukkah. Anyway, Rabbi Eliezer says, 12 of the dinim I heard from my rabbis. 18 I didn't hear. So in other words, I didn't hear it, so it's not with my understanding. I heard it, I didn't hear it, I didn't hear it. The same thing the Gemara tells me that Akavi ben Mahalal, Ani shemaiti mipi amerubim. The Gemara tells a story over there. Akavi ben Mahalal was arguing with the Chachamim. And they wanted to make Akavi ben Mahalal the head of the Bezdin. The head of the Bezdin. On the condition, he changes his mind in those things that everybody disagreed with him in. And he said, I'd rather be going down to the grave, not being ahead of the Jewish people and not giving in to pressure, whatever, for COVID. Anyway, so when he was dying, the Gemara says he said to his son, listen, what I said is because I heard it from the majority opinion. That's why I said what I said. But you only heard it from me versus all the other rabbis that disagree with you. So you have to go by what they say, not by what I say. Wow. That's what he told his son. I heard it from the majority of people, therefore I held what I held. And I wasn't going to change. Because in the earlier generation, majorities held like I said. I said like them. Wow. But you, that's what he says. Because the Tanoim and Amiroim were the ultimate level of bittul. Bittul is chachma. Therefore, the level of Moshe Rabbeinu was revealed within them. Bittul amiti v'nachnu ma. Min hamayim mishisihu, he was taken out of the water. Mayim is chachma. Mayim is tasteless. Wine is bina. Mayim is chachma. Because mayim has no taste. Wine is understanding, it's enjoyable. Okay, mayim is kabbalah, chachma. So why did Moshe Rabbeinu come in a mayim mishisihu? Number one, the water is the hidden levels. Mayim is... Yes. Gemara is bina. Gemara is understanding the mission. Moshe Rabbeinu came from water. Why? Why did he come from water? Number one, mayim is chachma. Moshe Rabbeinu is chachma. Secondly, water represents the hidden worlds. Half the world is land, half the world is water. The difference is revealed, hidden. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes from Alma Diskasia, his neshama comes from the highest levels, which is the level of Chachma, because it's too hidden to be revealed. So he said, Mashenkin Eliyahu b'gematria ban bittul chitzenis. Eliyahu, Moshe Rabbeinu, Chassidus explains the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and Eliyahu. Moshe Rabbeinu said, V'nachnu ma, bittul. Eliyahu equals 52. 52 is the level of ban, which is the gematria behema, animal, in the names of Hashem. So it says, Eliyahu was the level of chitzenis, lochein alo gufei. Therefore he went up alive to Gan Eden because his body was purified. In other words, the uniqueness of Eliyahu Hanavi, that his body went up alive to Gan Eden, is because he refined his body to such an extent it became spiritual. It became spiritual. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do that. When
you say Moshe Rabbeinu is a level of understanding, because
Chachma, general seichel.
Because of that level, doesn't mean they suffer more too, because they understand.
Not necessarily, no.
Because they see all this nonsense.
No. They're very wealthy Tanoim. And Amiroim, the Gemara, some of them were extremely wealthy.
No, not money-wise.
You mean spiritually?
Spiritually, they see all these things happening.
They see the good and they see the bad.
They see the bad, and it doesn't.
But tzaddikim only see good. They only see the good in everything. You can look at a surgeon cutting a guy open, you think he's murdering him when he's really saving his life. So a fool, basically, will think he's a murderer. A chacham will understand that he's saving his life. Okay? So we're all fools. We look at outside what God does in the world, we say, oh my God, it's terrible, it's bad, it's awful. Because we're blind. Let's not call ourselves stupid, even though we are. But let's say we're just blind. But tzaddikim only see the good in it. They don't see it as bad. Surgery is not good. Nobody just wants to go just cut yourself up. But they don't see the bad in the bad. They see the good that's in the bad. And therefore, as far as they're concerned, it's really good.
Because they only see God. They
only see the godly. And therefore he says this, by the way. L'chein halacha shomer tanoim b'mishnah heim bechinas elukus mamish. What the Tanoim say in the Mishnah, it's godly. It's mamish godly. Mashenimshech acher bir beis the mad chochmi lo, or k'mayim merazal elo ve'elu divrei lekim chayim. Even though there are different opinions, and both are right. L'chein meisvin tshuvta minei. Therefore, you can refute. Okay, there's a rule like this. Again, let's go. This general stuff. Once the era of Tanoim finished, the Gemara era cannot argue on a Mishnah. They can't argue on a Mishnah. They can say, I hold like an opinion in the Mishnah, but they can't argue on a clear-cut Mishnah. Therefore, if an Amida, somebody from the Gemara, says a rule, a halacha, and next time hit him, don't do it over there, and you'll knock some chokhmah into him, some chokhmah. Anyway, so if they refute an Amida from the Mishnah, the guy in the Gemara can't say, I argue on him. He can't. Because Mishnah is authentic. Bryce, on the other end, that he's going to talk about later, Bryce that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi didn't put into the Mishnah. Sometimes the Gemara says the Bryce is wrong. The Gemara will never say a Mishnah is wrong. It can't. Because Mamish, like he's saying it, Mamish Elukus. They could say that a Bryce is wrong because the fact that it wasn't put into the Mishnah, there's a reason why Rabbi Yehuda Nasi didn't, maybe it wasn't accepted. Maybe it was oral that, what they call telephone. Everybody keeps saying everything. By the time he gets back to the first guy, it's a completely different message. Yeah. So therefore, sometimes an Amir could say that Bryce is wrong. But a Mishnah is Mamish Elukus.
There's no dispute on the Mishnah.
Between the people of the Mishnah, yeah. But not from later generations. That's why even when, at the end of the era of the Gemara, with Ravina and Ravashi, they were the last ones that compiled the Gemara, Rishainim, Rashi, Rambam, those guys can't argue on a Gemara. If they say Allah and the Gemara says clearly opposite, not arguments, they say the Gemara says clearly the Rashi and Rambam can't argue on the Gemara. At the end of an era, it's an end of an era. That's it. This era B cannot argue on era A. Era C cannot argue on era B.
But I heard Rambam and some others, they go and dissect the discussion and make different conclusions in some regard.
Because they're saying this is what the Gemara says.
That's
But if it's clear what the Gemara says, I'll give a stupid example. If the Rambam says Chazer is kosher, and the Gemara clear cut says it's not, you can dissect it. Well,
that never happened.
Right, okay, I understand. I'm saying this is what the Gemara says, and the Golis, Miskansis, Elibus Chusam Mishnayis. The Golis is going to end in the merit of Mishnayis. And that's why, by the way, if you look at Yom Yom, many different places, the Rebbe says people should know Mishnayis by heart. Tillim by heart, Tanya by heart, things by heart, that when you walk in the street, you purify the air. You purify the air. Because the air of the world is corrupt. Now, when you say words in Mishnah, that's godliness. That's elukus mamish godliness. Same thing, any sefer, that's, like it says, through the Shach and Taz, all the Sforim were written with Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration. So it's godliness.
That includes Mara?
Gemara for sure. But they're different levels. Mishnah is a certain level higher than Gemara. That's why Gemara can't argue on a Mishnah. But when you walk in the street or anywhere and you say words of Torah, that actually purifies the world by bringing godliness into the world. Like we said many times, that what's the difference between a chassid learning a maimer or a Rabbi saying a maimer? What's the difference? So it says, when a chassid learns a discourse, a chassid learns a maimer, it's seichel, human seichel, understanding godliness. When a Rebbe says a maimer, it's godliness becoming seichel. It's a very big difference. Me understanding a maimer means my limited brain, my warped, limited, puny brain understands, if we're lucky, understands godliness. Here, godliness is coming into seichel. So the seichel is godliness. It's not my seichel understanding godliness. It's godliness. And therefore, when you walk in the street, you purify the air. Therefore, in the 60s, it was interesting. In the 60s, they would always be talking about pot and LSD. You know that. And the Kabbalistics used to go around. We were baching then in the 60s. Pot stood for put on tefillin. LSD stood for let's start davening. They would come up with all the things, in a positive way. You know, they would put up big signs, pot, and then they would write put on tefillin, you know. But that was let's start davening. So that's what he says. You have to elevate the world.
Rabbi,
What?
Evil.
What?
If Sadiqim don't see evil, how do you know what to daven for? Or how do they see a certain situation and they pray that it should
No. It's not that they didn't see evil.
They see the source.
They see the hidden purpose of it. Again, is surgery good or bad?
Necessary, of course.
Is surgery good? Answer the question. Is it good or bad?
It's good.
Good and bad.
It's either good or bad. If you need surgery, but surgery is bad. You want to be cut up? God forbid. Nobody wants to be cut up, right? If surgery is good, everybody should just line up in the hospital to get cut up instead of COVID test. Just get cut up.
What if you don't need it?
Oh, so when you need it and it's successful, surgery is good.
It's essential.
That means, again, a fool says surgery is bad. A chacham sees, if you need it, obviously, surgery is good. Now, if Hashem does what we call bad in the world, obviously it's because the world needs it. If the world didn't need it, Hashem wouldn't bring evil would open evil into the world. So tzaddikim understand, Hashem, who knows best, Father in heaven knows best. He knows this is what the world needs now. The world needs, whether it's a cleansing, whether it's to wake people up, that's God's business. And it's not our business. But one thing is for sure, we talk the talk. Okay, we could say, but tzaddikim actually feel it. Tzaddikim know in a way of feeling, in das, that if Hashem does it, it's good. And they are able to see the good that's in the bad. Just like you could see the good in the surgery.
Diamond in the rough.
So the question is, are you a fool that's looking at the now? And therefore the Gemara says, a chacham, what we're learning here, sees the future. A fool who likes food, and then he gets sick for 3 weeks from it, because he eats it for 10 minutes, he'll be sick for 3 weeks. He's a fool, because he only sees the now. He doesn't look at the overall picture. A chacham looks at the overall picture. Yeah, right now it might look good for you, but in the long run, it's not the right thing. You have this in chinuch with kids also. People think, right now this is great for the kid. It's not. Look at the long-term picture. It might not be good for the kid what the kid's doing now. Instead, that's the difference between a chacham and a fool, and between a tzaddik and everybody else. Tzaddikim, when Hashem does things that we call bad, therefore the Gemara says, the pasuk says, Ein ra yedim min hashemayim. Evil does not come from heaven. Hashem doesn't do evil. It says, Bereira, God created evil. It depends how you're looking at the evil. If you look at the ultimate purpose of the evil, it's good. So then evil itself is good. If you're looking at the now, now is terrible. Now is evil. It depends if you're a smart person or you're a fool. So he says, this is what refines the world and therefore it says that in the Meritim Mishnah, the even are redeemed only in the merit of tzedakah. Why? Which is aliyah acher avdallah, which is the separate elevation. After you separate good from bad, then you could take good and elevate it. In other words, in order to elevate good, you first have to separate the good from the bad. Once you separate good from bad, then you can go and elevate the good. If good and bad is mixed, you can't elevate anything. Like it says, you have gathered each Jew by the hand, by a tzedakah which elevates the person. Like the Rabbi explains, when a person gives tzedakah, the fact that he worked, the whole body worked to make the money, so then when you give it tzedakah, it's not like you're doing tefillin, you put it on the left hand, so you're elevating the hand. Because the money was earned by your whole body working, so then when you give tzedakah, like a penny in the first minyan, $1 in the second minyan, so then you actually elevate your whole body. It's not only the hand giving tzedakah. That money you got through your whole body. And he said, Alter Rebbe says sometimes, even a guy that inherited $1 billion, he doesn't have to work. But he could have bought food with that money. He could have bought things for himself. And instead of giving it, he gives them to tzedakah. So that money elevates the entire person.
Yes.
And therefore, just like he said, Mishnayis, which is elokus in the world, elevates the world, so does tzedakah. Hint, hint, hint.
Thank you.